Hello? Rescue hooks to rescue, Mayday! Get ahead, West. Fast Mayday, what's your location? Get the panel out of here, hurry up! We need radio silence, baby. Water in that 2.5 inch line. 48 inch water in a 2.5 inch line. To the rope, to the rope. 35 in the rear, 35 in the rear.
Welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast. Welcome back to the Emergency Traffic Podcast, where we examine firefighter line of duty deaths to learn from these tragic events to hopefully prevent them from recurring. I'm your host, Paul, and today I'm welcomed by my co-hosts, Denis and Dennis. And my dog is barking a little bit in the background. Okay. So let's see, before we jump into this week's episode, which is going to take us to Hawaii, where we've never been before, but before we jump into that, a couple of current events. Of course, really big news for our podcast is that NIOSH has reinstated all of their staff that had been let go over the civil service cuts and stuff like that about 8 months ago or 7 months ago or whatever by the new administration. So it's really exciting that NIOSH is getting their staff back, because a key part of our podcasting, of course, is the NIOSH reports. They're the largest source of our material on firefighter fatalities and injuries in the United States anyway. So we're really glad to see that. And of course, we've been in touch with NIOSH, and they're appreciating our podcast and they're supporting our work, which is also wonderful. And they've actually reposted a few of one of our episodes anyway, and they may be joining us for some episodes in the future. Let's see. The next one I had was there was a lithium-ion battery recycling truck in the UK that was driving down one of the motorways, the M3 motorway, and caught fire. And the Sussex Fire Rescue Service had to fight the fire for several days, closing the road and all kinds of problems about that, trying to stop the fire from these batteries that obviously somehow got into a thermal runaway. And so it's a growing problem we're seeing all over the world. In Poland yesterday, there was a huge factory that burned. It was a lithium-ion battery factory that caught fire and caused a tremendous loss in that city as well, and very difficult to extinguish these fires because of the self-generation of the chemicals and the oxygen.
But Paul, the proportion of lithium-ion fires is very low.
It is. It's but also the use is low compared to everything else. You try to get me going. Watch Stashed D training, and he's done a survey. He's a battery engineer, an engineer like you, Denis, and he also does training podcasts and stuff, and he's done a deep dive analysis. The biggest problem we have with analyzing how many, for vehicles anyway, lithium-ion battery fires for vehicles there's no good statistics. Canada doesn't have a Canadian reporting system. The reporting for fires is extremely ad hoc in Canada, dependent on many variables that don't happen always. And the United States has just implemented, or in the process of implementing, a new fire data system. So we actually don't know, because there's no box in many of the systems saying, was it an EV or was it an internal combustion engine? So the data is very sketchy on how many EV fires per 100,000 or whatever that we're going to see. We don't know.
But what we can agree to is when you have a lithium-ion battery fire, it tends to be notable.
Hard to extinguish.
Right. And I noticed there's a electric EV automobile manufacturer in China who's now developing a system for their automobiles that will eject the battery pack. So if the battery pack catches on fire, it ejects it. And I saw some videos of it, and it does a nice job of ejecting it about 10 or 15 feet to one side of the vehicle, which is excellent, right underneath the bus in the next lane, was my thinking. Yeah. So get away from me, thank you very much.
And I found out on Stashed D Training, that podcast or video YouTube, that Chrysler has a patent for a self-extinguishing rechargeable battery that has extinguishing medium inside the battery. So if there's a thermal runaway, it's supposed to put it out. But really, it's, I'm not very confident that it'll actually do the job and how long it would last and all that kind of stuff. Actually, now I've seen 2 pictures now in North America of fire departments actually burning thermal runaway vehicles into metal water immersion containers. So they're doing that in the Netherlands a little bit, and we're starting to see it here in North America as well.
Yeah.
So I imagine it'll grow. Not that it's an easy thing to do, and you still have all that contaminated water to deal with, but it puts the fire out, although it'll burn for hours in the underwater.
But I've seen several people describe lithium-ion battery fires as a chemical runaway type fire.
Basically.
And I disagree. It's not. It's a Class D fire, which is an live electrical fire. And every single fire is a chemical fire because
D is burning metal.
I'm sorry. Energized electrical is what I mean.
Or C. That's a B.
Excuse me. Yeah. C. It's energized electrical, and in some cases it is D, burning metals, lithium.
Right.
So it's a combination of those things, because every fire, of course, is a chemical event. That's what fire is.
That's what fire is. Yep.
And so that's the reason a lot of these fires are difficult to extinguish, is because you've got trapped energy that's trying to get out even when there is no active fire.
And it's generating its own oxygen potentially inside the battery to keep the fire going.
Yep. That's right.
You had an interesting note about a fire department that was changing its response mode. I'm always interested in those ones.
Yeah, I don't think this is necessarily earth-shaking by any stretch of the imagination, but it's Virginia Beach, Virginia, has decided to formally adopt downgrading responses to some medical calls, and this started in November, and they're looking at the statistics on that, and they're saying that their responses are twice as safe, and there is possibly a 2 to 3 minute extension in response times, but that for a lot of medical incidents, that's not critical at all. And even in cases where the staff is upgraded en route, there is patient refusals, even on lights and sirens responses. And any of us who have ever responded to medical calls, you know that there's a large percentage of medical calls are a lot less urgent when you get to the patient than they might have appeared in the beginning. So they're recognizing that it's an unnecessarily risk in the community to be responding lights and sirens when the patient at the other ends might refuse or is not really at level 4 urgent.
Yeah, it makes me think of that. The UK and Scotland, several departments are going to no response daytime to businesses that are just automatic alarms. They don't even respond. They've done a big education campaign to tell people that you have to phone if you need the fire department during the day at a business, or else we're not going to come, because they were just getting so many false alarms, due to cleaning or maintenance or repairs or construction or whatever during business hours, that they just decided to stop going altogether, which is the other extreme, I guess.
Yeah. And here I follow, fire reports all across the province, and many times I see automated crash indication, and the fire department's, rolling out the whole station to a car crash on the highway, and they get there and there's no car crash. It's just not there. It's like your smartwatch calling 911
kind of thing.
Yeah, OnStar. Not to name a name, but or somebody dropped their watch and it called 911, and so a lot of these things are generating unnecessary. Like if in my fire department, if you had a call like that, you would not respond lights and sirens, or at least no more than the first unit, and you would do so even so cautiously, because it's an unverified event.
Cool. Okay. Cool. So on to the episode. So let's see. On January 6th of 2025, a 25-year-old firefighter, Jeff Fiala, died, hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, died becoming disoriented and trapped while conducting an unprotected search in a 9-apartment residential building fire. The information for this episode primarily comes from the NIOSH report, F2025-02, and also from an article from the Honolulu Civil Beat. We've got a little bit from that in there too, so that's where we get our sources from. In this case, the fire department in Honolulu, 597 square mile jurisdiction, serves a population of 1 million people. Annually responds to about 60,000 calls, provides emergency medical EMS at the basic life support level, non-transport, and the fire department also maintains 43 stations and an aircraft station. The fire department is comprised of 1,120 uniformed personnel across 5 battalions. 15 suppression battalion chiefs and 2 administrative battalion chiefs manage the 5 battalions that are divided into 3 platoons each. Daily staffing is 333 firefighters. Staffing for engine and aerial companies is 4 to 5 personnel, which is awesome. That was another news article, is that Lethbridge and another city in Alberta got minimum 4-person staffing on trucks into their union contract, IAFF. So I should have covered that one, but that's a good one. It's really cool to see that in the contract that they have to provide for on an engine. 4 to 5 personnel, which includes a fire captain, an apparatus operator, and 2 or 3 firefighters. Hazmat and rescue companies are staffed with 5 personnel, including a captain, apparatus operator, 3 hazmat technicians or rescue technicians. The fire department's leadership is comprised of a fire chief, a deputy fire chief, and 4 assistant chiefs who manage 4 divisions such as training and operations and prevention, etc.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the training, education, professional development, also as it applies to Jeff Fiala. So the fire department maintains a training and research bureau that provides initial firefighter recruit training, incumbent firefighter training, so that's firefighters who are already on staff, and continuing education for all firefighters. So I would differentiate those as incumbent firefighter training is probably your on-shift training, and continuing education may be special training that's put on several times a year. They train fire officers, and they also train their EMS personnel. Remember, there are non-transport EMS responders, like many fire departments are. The initial training for recruits consists of 8 months of academy lecture and hands-on skill development. Recruits graduate from their academy with an International Fire Services Accreditation or IFSAC Congress professional certification as a firefighter 1 or firefighter 2. So that's a reference there to NFPA Standard 1001. Fire apparatus driver operator and hazmat awareness and operations. Recruits also graduate with a city operator certification, so that's for driving the vehicle, and as a nationally registered emergency medical technician. I would mention here that having city officer certification is becoming more the norm now because insurance companies are demanding it. You're operating city-owned equipment. They want some assurance from the city that the operators of that equipment meets the responsibilities of the city as an operator. So you'll see that periodically, probably in your jurisdiction too.
Yeah, well, we're seeing more and more accidents, right, where the qualifications are questionable. We had the one in Florida where I think the driver and the captain were both let go or suspended or job action or something against them. And it turned out there was driving history problems with the driver. And so, the cities have to cover themselves on that. I know we used to get an abstract every year for every driver.
So firefighter Jeff Fiala, who died in this incident, he had only 1.5 years of service with the department. He had maintained, and during that period, he had maintained his training in and held numerous certifications. So in other words, firefighter 1, firefighter 2, apparatus operator, hazmat awareness, and EMT provider, as would have been required to pass his probationary period. During this particular incident, the first 4 arriving apparatus that were on scene had acting company officers, so not full-time officers in charge of those trucks. So those were Engine 2, Engine 29, Ladder 2, and Engine 9. 4 of those all had actors in the officer's seat. However, all were trained to professional developments as set by the department, including National Hazard Zone Incident Command training and certifications programs. And we don't have information on what their experiential levels were of those actors either. So.
And I'm guessing that's Blue Card is, because that's what Blue Card calls it, is Hazard Zone Incident Command Training.
Yeah. But we don't know how long they were actors for. So.
Apparatus and communications. The fire department maintains 63 frontline apparatus. This includes 43 engines, 16 aerials, and 4 tankers. The aerials include a total of 8 two-piece combination apparatus. So they're equipped with a 100-foot mid-mount aerial ladder. And then they've got 6 quint apparatus, and those are equipped with a 75-foot rear mount aerial. And they also have 2 tower apparatus, and those are equipped with an 85-foot rear mount platform. The fire department has 2 hazmat companies, 2 heavy rescue companies, and 3 helicopters. So the first alarm units within 3 minutes of each other with the estimated staffing for this call, there was 4 engines, a ladder, and a battalion for roughly 21 firefighters. The second alarm units would have been within 3 minutes of the first alarm, would have comprised of a rescue, another ladder, and 2 further engines for an additional 16-person complement.
So they had good staffing on the call. Really, they had, was that 37 within 6 minutes. That's a
but
lot.
in retrospect, Paul, responding to a multi-unit residential, 21's not adequate on the first alarm. You're looking at more like 27 is 28 is needed.
Right.
So
yeah.
But as we'll find out later, though, they didn't know they were going to a multi.
No, that's right. So
Like,
I'll talk
surprise.
a little bit about the surprise. Guess what you got? I mean, that's, yeah. Let's see. Building construction and occupancy status. This single-family residence was built in 1906. Wow. Located at the front of the property near the street. The official Department of Planning and Permitting records indicate that the building was relocated to the rear of the property in 1954. An additional residence was built on the same property up near the street. The two-story building involved in this incident was 32 by 62 feet with 1,700.
No, I was just going to say that this is a confusing description, and if you want to know it, the address is 1645 Yonge Street in Honolulu, and if you pull that up on Street View, it will become more clear to you if you're a listener and you wanted to follow along.
Okay. So the two-story building involved in the incident was 32 by 62 feet, 1,770 square feet on the first division, they call it, first floor. They do the ICS terminology of divisions. 550 square feet on the second division. After the building was relocated to the rear, it was converted from a single-family residence into a 9-unit multifamily residence with 6 units on the first floor and 3 units on the second floor. And if you look at the drawings and stuff in the NIOSH report, which we will put on our social media feed, it was a boarding house, basically. There wasn't a kitchen for every suite. There was a common bathroom on many of the suites, stuff like that. It was very tight and very small.
Yeah. And calling it 2-story is an exaggeration. Here in the Northeast, we'd call it a 1.5.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a 1.5 on the second floor, didn't cover the whole first floor, and the second floor was within the peaked roof. So it was definitely a 1.5.
Right. So the building had a post and pier foundation. It was a 2x6 floor joist. So it was up on stilts, basically. It wasn't on the ground, which is common
it was about 4 feet
in
up.
those areas. Yeah, 4 feet up because of typhoons and flooding and stuff, right?
And rats.
In the Pacific, it's a typhoon, and in the Atlantic, it's a hurricane. Let's see, 2x6 floor joists and 1x12 floor sheathing. The walls were a combination of 2x4 wood studs with 1x12 interior sheathing and 1-inch exterior shiplap siding in a single wall construction. What they're saying here, it's actually single wall construction unique to Hawaii. It utilizes the 1-inch by 12-inch boards oriented horizontally on one side and the 1x12 boards oriented vertically on the opposite side to create walls without any vertical structural members or studs. Now remember, there's probably not a lot of wood for building in Hawaii. So all the timber has to be imported. So, I mean, there might be some local timber, but I'm not sure if it's what we're used to. So that might be a reason for why they built this way. The roof consisted of conventionally framed 2x4 rafters with 2x4 skip sheathing, which had been covered by plywood at some point. The building had been remodeled during its life cycle, and as a result, there was a combination of 1-inch shiplap and Canuck fiberboard interior wall finishes. Canuck is a fiberboard building material made from sugar cane bagasse, which is the residual fiber that remains after juice has been extracted from the sugar cane. Canuck fiberboard was used extensively as an interior wall finish until 1964 in the area. In this incident, the Canuck fiber interior wall coverings were heavily charred and likely contributed to the flame spread within the structure.
So, Paul, you got a building that is 120 years old, and it's built out of unprotected timber and very light grass-like materials as wallboarding on the inside. You can imagine how that would burn.
Yeah. When I lived in northern Quebec, we lined the inside of the building we built with what was called at the time tin test. And it was like a pressed fiberboard that you could paint. And so we used it on all the walls and ceiling coverings and stuff like that. I don't know. I never tested the flammability. I didn't play with a match and try it, but there was no fire services when I lived in the remote bush of northern Quebec, so it probably wasn't a good idea.
Or so he says, eh? Hey, Paul, just a correction there. We said the roof was consisted of conventionally framed 2-inch by 4-inch rafters, and I think it was 1-inch by 4-inch skip sheathing. I think you said 2-inch by 4-inch.
Oh, could be.
But
okay.
Yeah, so it's just a little bit lighter, so a little bit lighter, drier material, easier to burn.
So skip sheathing is you take your 1x4 and you nail it crossways to the rafters, and then you leave a big gap and you put another one, because all you're trying to do is pick up the sheathing here and there as you're nailing it. You're not making any attempt to sheathe it completely. The roofing material, whether it's corrugated tin or whatever, or just shingling or clay tile or whatever they're putting on the roof, covers over the gaps. So it's wide open basically from the underside.
Lots
so
of
each little piece of 1x4 is up there, where the fire can get all around it nicely.
Well, and you think about the construction standards of North America compared to, a tropical climate like Hawaii. They don't need the 2x6 walls, or the 2x10 ceilings and floors, for the snow load that we've got here. And we know that the smaller the diameter of the wood, the easier it is to burn. We've talked a bit about maybe some heavy timber construction and some multiplexes or multi-floors in Canada now. They're starting to allow that again, which I'm not thrilled about, and going down to one exit again, which is kind of scaring me as well. But here it's all lightweight because it's tropical, right? They basically just need to keep the rain and, like you said, Denny, the rats out, and they're good.
This is 1906 too. There was no building codes, so
yeah. But even here in North America, we see a lot of very substandard construction. Most building codes didn't come into mid-early 70s.
70s, yep.
Yeah, give or take. So many older buildings, you start peeling away the decorative paneling on the inside and start looking at the structure of the building. And in many cases, I've found myself going, "Oh, wow." And not in a good way.
And sometimes it was overbuilt because the engineering wasn't there, right? So a lot of times you would overbuild it for what. But now where we have the engineering, we often see almost underbuilt because it marginally meets the requirement, right? There's no extra, there's no excess strength.
Yeah. And there's no indication in this building that there was a heavy timber interior frame holding it up.
No.
It was just being held up by all these scant materials.
Yep. So throughout the building, there were several doors. This is going to be important later. Throughout the building, there were several doors that were permanently shut to separate the individual dwelling spaces. Remember, this was a single family, and they converted it to multifamily, basically a boarding house. These doors did not provide sufficient fire separation and even contributed to the fire spread between the units.
If the walls were thin, you could imagine how thin the doors were.
Yeah, exactly. In 1955, after the building had been relocated to the rear of the property, the official building records show that the building's occupancy classification was listed as hotel and apartments. This is the first recorded documentation that the building was no longer a single-family home. In 1974, a certificate of occupancy was granted for the building to contain 10 individual apartments. These occupancy changes were never shared with the Fire Prevention Bureau, and as a result, it was never included in their inspection program or identified as a multifamily occupancy. I know, like Sylvan Lake has that. They passed their own bylaw in town that any home that's a rental, Airbnb, or any kind of multifamily, they do annual or biannual inspections on them. So over and above what building code says in Alberta, or fire code says under QMP.
So they say here, and I got a bit of a bone to pick with this because it says Fire Prevention Bureau didn't know that this was a multi-occupancy. Well, as you've already been described. Yeah, so it's 74. So this building had sat at the sidewalk on the street. And in 1974, or whenever it was, 55, I'm sorry, the building was moved 50 feet or more back into the property. So these properties are quite deep between city blocks. You got a road, and you got buildings along each side of the road. And there's a big gap in behind, open backyards. And so this building was moved all the way into the backyard. But if you look in Google on this street, the backyards are full in most of these occupancies anyways. And then they went and built another 2-story building in front of this building. And that 2-story building is obviously multi-occupancy because it has multiple electric meters on the outside. So they're telling me that the building inspectors came and inspected that building, but didn't notice the one behind.
Uh-oh, got your management hat on now.
Well, I'm just thinking to myself, nobody told you, so you didn't see it? I don't think so.
Exactly. Yeah, it didn't come up on the report. Well, of course, we all know how tough it is to keep the inspections up to date.
Yeah. So it would appear, though, that it wasn't on the run card as a multi. So
personal protective equipment. So at the time of the incident, Engine 9 was wearing full structural firefighting turnout gear and NIOSH approved MSA Model G1. These SCBAs have a 45-minute or 4,500 PSI tank on them. The investigators inspected and photographed the PPE. Engine 9D had a personal two-way radio that was confirmed to be in the on position and in the correct tactical channel. During the incident, Engine 9D made 2 inaudible radio transmissions. He manually activated his pass device approximately 7 minutes after turning on his SCBA. There was no evidence to suggest that the turnout gear or SCBA contributed to the fatality. The weather conditions at the time of the incident, at 1853 hours on January 6th, 2025, the outdoor temperature there was 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Dew point was 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and the wind was out of the southwest at 8 miles per hour. There had been no precipitation in the last 24 hours, and conditions were considered fair.
So just to point out to everybody, so for identification on the apparatus, the people are identified by the engine or ladder number, and then Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, by which position or which person they were. So firefighter Fiala was engine 9D or Delta.
Yeah, and you're going to see later on that Alpha's the officer, Bravo is the engine operator, and CD is the crew. Right. So you mentioned a wind of 8 miles per hour and the direction. That's impacting on the Charlie side towards the Delta corner. And that's actually important because even though 8 miles an hour is not a lot, it's like, 12, 13 kilometers an hour in Canadian speak.
It's enough.
And you're going to find out that, in fact, the Charlie Delta corner is the route that they attacked the fire from, and that's where the fire was. And they do create a fire path in this fire, as we've talked about at several previous incidents, and we'll probably talk about that again.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm going to continue on a little bit with the investigation. So the dispatch was about 1944 hours, and Firecom dispatch dispatched Engine 2, Engine 4, Engine 9, and Engine 29. So 4 engines, 4 guys each. Ladder 2 and Battalion 1 for command for a building fire, with the caller noting that it was in apartment number 9. So they must have known it was a multi because they said it was in apartment 9. So after receiving multiple further calls, Fire Communications upgraded the incident to a second alarm within 1 minute. So the second alarm dispatched a further Engine 1, Engine 22, Ladder 9, and Rescue 1. So a further 2 engines, a ladder, and a rescue. Firecom advised all incoming units to operate on the B2 Tactical Channel 3 for the incident. So they assigned a tactical channel to this incident.
That's awesome. They upgraded right away, I guess, because of multiple calls. They knew it was real.
Right. So that's what I commented earlier, that 21 on the initial dispatch of 21 staff, which was still 4 engines, ladders, and battalion, was not enough for a multi. But they recognized that right away, and they sent a second alarm assignment, which got them up to what was the numbers that got us up to, Dennis?
46, 37.
37.
Yeah, so
should have been 40 some.
Yeah, that should have been enough to handle an initial fire response to a multi. So that would meet NFPA.
Oh yeah, so you got 37
right
personnel.
Now, so.
You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 engines and 2 ladders.
Battalion and
a
safety
battalion, and a safety
and a rescue, and a rescue.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's a lot.
Within 3 minutes of dispatch, Engine 2 arrived on scene and provided a size up of a 2-story apartment building with lazy smoke visible, but no flames at that time. Engine 2 pulled a pre-connect a 200 feet of 1.75 inches for a fire attack and requested that the next arriving engine establish a water supply. I will point out that the distance from the curb to the main entrance at the front of the fire building on the Alpha side was 90 feet.
Oh, we are creatures of our own habit and demise.
So they're pulling an 1.75 inches to a multi-residence that's almost 100 feet off the road. So that's interesting. Anyway, upon arrival,
100-year-old multifamily residence.
Yeah. Actually, you could barely see it from the street, eh? I mean, all you had was 2 gangways down either side that gave you access to it. So it was tree surrounded, building surrounded, cramped in the backyard behind another building. So they probably didn't get a good visual size up on it when they got there. Anyway, on arrival, engine 29 connected to a hydrant with 100 feet of 4-inch supply line, which in my world is small. We went to 5-inch 15 years ago.
I was surprised to read that Hawaii in 2025 was still using 4-inch. Like, although after reading everything that happened in Maui, I'm not entirely surprised because they were under-equipped, under-prepared, under everything. Yeah. And apparently the fire service in the Hawaiian Islands for years has been, sort of a backwards, funded and stuff like that. They didn't even have a fire commissioner. I don't want to be nasty, but so you got a fire department doing 60,000 calls a year, 1 million people, and they're running 4-inch hose. Like my little town of Lacombe here got rid of their 4-inch hose years ago.
Well, if you think about it, their entire water system is built off of 4-inch lines and 4-inch,
Well, we don't know that.
Ports.
We don't know that.
But with water's scarce in Hawaii. The only water they get is rainwater, and they got to collect it.
You still can't relay pump and pump big water if you got 4-inch hose. It just doesn't work.
Well, no distance, anyways.
Distance.
And part of the decision matrix for us when we did it was, our city had like 65 psi on the hydrants, right? And small mains. Although I think every 5 or 6 blocks you'd have a major main like a 20-incher, but the rest of it was 8-inch, 6-inch, even 4-inch. But that was the decision matrix, because we knew we had to push water and we didn't have a lot of pressure coming off the hydrants. So we'd have gone to 6 if we thought we could have handled it. But it was.
When I sold Charlottetown their new aerial truck back in I don't know what it was. They bought 6-inch hose, 100-foot lengths of 6-inch hose for this new ladder truck, and they opened a box and they sent it all back. They said, "There's no way we can't move this stuff." They had to go to 5-inch 50s.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, after arrival, engine 29 connected to the hydrant, laid out 100 feet of 4-inch supply. So the hydrant was pretty handy, and relayed water, which to me says the engine sat on the hydrant and pumped it. Good move. Engine 29's crew, from where they were sitting, observed gray smoke as they approached the building. So they left the truck running, pumping water, and the crew left. Anyway, 4 minutes after the time of the call, which is basically when they arrived, Ladder 2 and Engine 9 arrived on scene. Engine 2A, which is the captain, requested their hose line be charged and requested that another company bring forcible entry tools. So Engine 2 firefighters observed fire and smoke now, and fire coming from a window on the Delta side towards the back, which turns out to be apartment 9 kitchen on the first floor. And a minute after that, Engine 4 arrived on scene. I want you to remember, though, that this is a raised building. We said it's at least 4 feet off the ground. So you're not walking up to a window and looking in. It's a half story above you all along. So that complicates things. So you got restricted access. The building's well off the street and it's raised and it's cooking. So 6 minutes after the time of call, Ladder 29 and Battalion 1 arrive on scene. So Battalion 1's going to take command, right? Battalion 1 staged 500 feet down the road from the incident and performed command from his vehicle using a tactical board and aid. Alan Brunacini's recommendations.
Perfect.
For fire command,
Blue
right?
card. He's got an aid, a field incident technician.
Yeah. 500 feet's a distance, but I would think that 500 feet gave him a view into the building. Because you get on, like I said, you get onto street view and you move around, you can't much see this building that's on fire. Eventually you'll see it, but not at first. Engine 2A, which is the captain, again requested their hose line be charged. So he's requesting it a second time. So he's having communications problems with his pump operator, who's probably running around the engine hooking up hoses. Anyway, Engine 29D, which is another firefighter, then also makes a request to charge the hose line But unfortunately, he was on the wrong tactical channel, so it didn't get through to the pump operator. So Engine 2 captain makes an additional, which would be the third or fourth request if you're counting the one that didn't get through, to have their hose line pressure increased. So the engineer then boosts the pressure to 120 psi. That's not surprising. That's where it should have started out in my mind, but never mind. Anyway, so the operator then previously secured the water supply before sending pressure to the hose line. So as I was saying, he was busy running around making connections. So maybe didn't have a portable radio on him. I don't know. 7 minutes after the time of the call, Battalion 1 requested confirmation on incident status. So he's looking for a CAN report, right? Conditions, actions, needs, right? Indicating that he had Engine 2. Paul's giving me the thumbs up that I remembered that. We didn't call it that. We called it something else, but never mind. Engine 29 is providing a water supply, and Engine 9, Ladder 2, and Ladder 29 and Engine 4 are all on scene. So after Battalion West requested the CAN report, Engine 2A captain responded that they had water on the fire from the exterior. So they stretched down to the Charlie Delta corner and were trying to go interior. So 90 feet
attack.
to the front of the building, you got another, how deep is this building, Paul? Did we say it's about
72 feet?
Yeah. Ain't got a lot of hose left.
Nope.
Out of a 200 pre-connect when you get all the way down to the back there.
At least they had a 200-foot pre-connect, not a 150.
At least, but they're only pumping it at 120. So, okay. Anyway, so obviously they have a high-pressure nozzle on the end of that line if they're pumping it at 120.
Probably.
Battalion 1 requested location of the fire and asked if another company was assisting. Engine 2 captain responded that the fire was located on the 1st Division, meaning the first floor. And a minute later, Battalion 1 assigned Engine 29 to stage on the Alpha side and to stretch a pre-connect hose, 2.5-inch pre-connect, to side Alpha. So to the front of the building.
He's thinking ahead. This is good. He's getting ready for what if.
Yeah. So on the side Alpha, you have a single entrance door into the building. So you got to go up a set of stairs to a stoop and in the door. And when you go in the door, there's a long, very narrow hallway that goes all the way to the back of the building almost.
And go up the steps, it's a 90-degree bend right away into the hallway. So you go up the 4 or 5 or 10 steps, and then you got to turn right immediately to go down that hallway into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 apartment.
Yeah. So the smart hose company stretches the hose through the railing on the stoop, not up the stairs.
Not over the bend. Yes, I don't know what that looks like.
So you can jack hose directly into the building.
Tip for all our firefighters on here: if you got a stoop like that, stretch the hose in straight. Don't make the bend.
Right. However, once you do that, you no longer have control of that door, do you? Where's the wind? Where's the fire?
Flow path.
Yeah. So the wind and the fire is in the Charlie Delta corner, and you've just opened a door on the Alpha side.
You could have one of those curtains. Fire curtain.
Yeah, there's ways to do it. You can control the door mostly. There's things you can do, right? But only if you're thinking about it, right? Anyway, 9 minutes after the call, Engine 2A captain, in other words, told Battalion 1 that they were making entry for a primary search on the Charlie Delta 1st Division. So remember, Engine 2 is down around the side. So Rescue 1 then said that they had Ladder 2 firefighters with them, and they were going to make entry on the Alpha side of the 1st Division. So they were going to go in the front while Engine 2 is down around the corner in the back. So they observed smoke coming from the sill on the Alpha Delta corner prior to making entry. So they're walking up to this building that's 4 feet off the ground, and they can see smoke coming out of the sill in the Alpha Delta corner. That tells you that smoke is already pushing from the very back corner of the building all the way up to the front of the building. Yep. So this building is not smoke tight, and it's being pushed by the wind as well as any draft flow path being created by opening that door on the Alpha side.
Well, I'm assuming the window was open because they had flames coming out of it on
in the back.
Apartment 9.
Well, it would have failed for sure, right? Yeah.
Or it failed. Yeah. So we have a flow path.
This is the thin wall, Paul. Could have easily burned right through.
Yeah, it could have.
Like if you'd had on it, I will tell the listeners that this was determined to be unattended cooking is where the fire was origin. So easily burned the stove into the cupboards, out through the wall behind, possibly, right? So that could have happened. Anyway, they don't get into those details in the official report. Anyway, Battalion 1 requested Ladder 2 complete their primary search on the 1st Division. And Engine 9 captain told Battalion 1 that they were also conducting a primary search, but they were going to go to the second floor, the second division. And I will tell you that access to the second floor, there was only one way to it. You had to go in the Alpha door, you had to go all the way down the hall, and at the end of the hall on the right was a set of stairs. And you went up the stairs, turned on a landing, and went up the rest of the stairs, and now you were on that abbreviated second floor. So that was the only way to the second floor, and that's how they went. So Battalion 1 then asked Engine 9 captain if they had a hose line with them, to which Engine 9 captain said no, and that was no fire on the second division that they could see. Engine 9, however, did have with them a set of irons, which is your Halligan and your flat-headed axe, and they had a thermal imaging camera with them, so they were properly equipped. Upon entering the second division, they had limited visibility with light, smoke, but no heat at that time.
So a minute after that, Battalion 1 assigned Engine 4 to stage on the side Alpha with their RIT gear, the Rapid Intervention Team gear. So they're trying to be prepared in case something goes wrong. Battalion 1 requested that Ladder 29 perform a 360-degree size-up to report and secure the utilities to the building. Engine 29 officer indicated that they had an electric service line above them on the Alpha Delta corner with flames blowing out on side Delta now. As Ladder 2 completed a search of apartment number 3, which, if you can visualize it, is in the Alpha Bravo corner, they observed light smoke and a flash coming from down the hallway towards the Charlie side. As Ladder 2 firefighters completed searches of apartments number 1 and number 3, a firefighter kicked open a door of apartment number 2. Upon entering between the 2 to 3 feet into the apartment, number 2 heat and flames were observed spreading towards the firefighter from side Charlie of the room. Within 10 seconds, the room flashed and the firefighter immediately exited apartment number 2. Ladder 2 was forced to evacuate outside Alpha. The fire extended out of apartment 2 into this long, narrow hallway and eventually up the stairs into the second division. So that would have been kind of like a chimney flow path.
So just for the listeners, apartment 1 and 2 are in line on the Delta side with the fire in the kitchen on the Charlie end. So they're on the same in a row, and the only thing dividing apartment 2 from the kitchen is that nailed shut door and the bathroom.
Right. So I would also say that you think about this, you think, they're just going down searching these apartments, and then they get close to the fire and they kick a door open. Why would they do that? Because there might be fire behind that door. Well, the apartment doors are off this narrow hallway. So the door that they kicked open that had fire in the apartment that they didn't know was just across the hallway from another apartment that they just searched, which was just down the hallway from 2 other apartments that they just searched. So search 1, nobody there. Search 2, nobody there. Search 3, nobody there. Search 4, uh-oh. So you can see where they get caught. But what they don't do is they control the door. They don't do that.
Yeah, and Denny, you were saying earlier, you've seen similar buildings where that hallway is so narrow, it's hard to work around. And the firefighters were probably trying to create a bit of space and get access in there quickly to see what was going on as well. Yeah.
One building in particular, I'll just elaborate for the listeners, that was very similar to this, except the hallway wasn't long and straight. It went a big general U. But 2 firefighters geared up with air packs couldn't pass each other in the hallway. And you would barely had enough room to turn around in the hallway. And this particular building, if you look at the floor plan of it, it's very similar, very narrow hallway, probably not much more than 3 feet wide, if that. So cramped quarters, right? And you could see that if you opened the door and the fire came chasing out after, you'd be thinking, how the hell am I getting my 4 guys out of here in one piece? No, and sure. Right next to the door that they opened, that the fire came out of, is the bottom of the stairs to the second floor.
Man, oh man. I'll do 2 more here, Paul, and then you want to go?
Yep.
Okay. 11 minutes after the original call, 8 minutes after the first apparatus arrival, Engine 9 officer called for a mayday, noting they were cut off on the second division, so the second floor, with fire in the stairwell. He also engaged his radio's emergency alert button. Battalion 1 acknowledged the transmission, and Ladder 29 officer reported that there were flames lapping up on side Delta toward the second division. So it was going up the wall up to the second floor. They deployed another pre-connect hose line, which was 200 feet of 1 3/4 off of Engine 2. Dispatch confirmed to Battalion 1 that they had heard the mayday, From the Engine 9 officer, Battalion 1 requested dispatch to sound the emergency tones. Engine 9 firefighters were forced to the floor due to the rapid heat and zero visibility. Now, 13 minutes after the original call, the dispatch transmitted the emergency tones, and Battalion 1 advised all companies operating at the scene that they had a confirmed mayday. The Engine 9 officer reported to Battalion 1 that they were on the 2nd Division or the 2nd floor above the stairwell, overcome with flames. They requested a hose line. Battalion 1 requested Engine 1 to stretch a line to the 2nd Division or 2nd floor and assist with getting the Engine 9 firefighters out. Engine 22 officer then advised that they were on side Bravo with a hose line set up. Battalion 1 requested they stretch that hose line to the 2nd Division and get Engine 9 out of there. Engine 22 officer ordered their firefighters to make entry, and a minute later, dispatch advised that all units on the fire ground that a mayday had been declared and requested all companies to maintain radio discipline. Ladder 2 officer advised Battalion 1 that they had a ground ladder and asked if they would like them to ladder the building.
Yeah, and that's like, if you got somebody upstairs, you should always ladder the building. You need that second exit, and that's when I did that emergency scene management course in JIBC, that was a requirement, is you had to have written place within 10 minutes, and if anybody went on the 2nd floor, you had to ladder it. That's just what you did, which is a good point. Shouldn't even have to ask, but it's good to ask.
In fairness, there were very limited opportunities to ladder access points on the 2nd floor.
Yeah.
And Engine 1 is going to stretch a line to the 2nd floor to help out Engine 9. The only way they could have done that was through a window in the 2nd floor, because the only other way up there was a set of stairs that you couldn't get up. So they would have had to ladder the building on the Bravo side, go in through a window into one of the other apartments, and then maybe get to the hallway.
There was a window on the front on the Alpha side over the doorway. There was a window on towards the rear on the Bravo side, a big window into apartment 6. There was a little window on the Charlie side in apartment 6 where they found a Halligan actually laying on the floor. And then the bathroom, of course, had no windows on the 2nd Division. And then apartment 7, which was directly over the kitchen, and apartment 2, there was one window on the Delta side.
Should have been laddered, before they went up to do their search. Before
you went up there, or as soon as you went up there.
And they had enough people on scene to do that.
They did. It's high, though, because you got that 4 feet off the ground, plus 10 feet or so for the 1st floor, and then another 3-4 feet. So we're talking a 24-foot ladder might not quite do it, depending what they carry on their rigs. But the ladder trucks were there. So
know your hood.
Know your hood. 15 minutes after time of call, Battalion 1 requested a CAN report from Engine 9. Engine 9 officer responded that they were on the 2nd Division landing, but unsure what side of the building. He further reported that his facepiece was melting. They had a par of 2. They were missing 2 firefighters, and that they needed water. Battalion 1 then requested a CAN report from Engine 22A, who responded they were making entry. 22 Bravo advised their apparatus was positioned at the Alpha Bravo corner with only one hose line deployed, so he was the engineer. Battalion 1 requested Engine 4 to stretch another hose line off 22 to get into the 2nd Division to assist with the mayday. Engine 4 deployed 200 feet of inch and 3/4. 2 Engine 9 firefighters, the officer and Bravo, which is the driver, engineer, found a door at the end of the hallway, apartment 8, so towards the Alpha side, basically. Engine 9B used strength and an axe to breach through the door, unaware where it went, but we got to get out of here, right? Thinking that the environment had to be better on the other side. Engine 9 officer was now alone, and he found a hole in the door by the field. Both firefighters exited a window leading to a small roof, because remember, the footprint of the 2nd Division was smaller than the 1st, so there was roof all around it. So they're able to go out the window and end up on the roof of the 1st Division Alpha side. They then climbed down a 24-foot ladder thrown by Rescue 1.
Right. So there's something in here that's easy to lose track of in the narrative, and Engine 9 captain and the Engine 9 firefighter who forced the door at the end of the hall and got out, they weren't actually in communications with each other, because the firefighter found the door at the end of the hallway, used an axe to breach through the door, getting through the door, thinking to be better. And Engine 9 captain now found he was alone and found his way down to the door, found a hole in the door, and got through it afterwards. So they weren't communicating.
Yep.
So crew integrity completely broke down when the fire overtook the crew.
17 minutes after time of call, Engine 9 Alpha reported to Battalion 1 that they had 2 firefighters now out of the building. That was the captain, with Rescue 1, but they are still missing 2 firefighters. Battalion 1 acknowledged. Engine 22A officer reported that they were on side Bravo and had not made entry yet. Oh my gosh. They heard screams for help at the back corner of the building. Battalion 1 requested a status report from Ladder 29 to soften the building to assist with rescue operations. Ladder 29 officer reported that they had 1 ground ladder in place and 2 firefighters from Engine 1. Battalion 1 requested that all sides of the building be softened.
So could I point out that there were only 2 doors into this building? There was the one door at the front on the Alpha side, and there was one door on the Charlie side at the Delta corner. And that one door in the back only went to apartment 9, didn't go into the rest of the building.
Yeah.
So there were no other access doors to this building, just the one on the Alpha side.
The apartments only had one way in and out, really, except for windows.
So when they say soften, they mean take a chainsaw and make some doors.
Maybe. Yeah, I was just going to say we need to, for the non-firefighters out there, explain what soften means so they can kind of understand what's going on.
In this case, I mean, they had 2 open walls. 1 minute later, so this is all happening very fast, Engine 9 Alpha advised Battalion 1 the missing firefighters were Engine 9 Charlie and Engine 9 Delta, firefighter Jeff Fiala. 1 minute later, an inaudible radio transmission was received from Engine 9 Charlie. Battalion 1 responded asking Engine 9 Charlie to locate Engine 9 Delta and turn on their personal safety alert systems or PAS devices and a flashlight, and find a window to call for help. Engine 9 Charlie responded that he was outside the building now, but Engine 9 Delta was still unaccounted for. Battalion 1 then attempted to call Engine 9 Delta, firefighter Jeff Fiala, by name on the radio and requested they respond. 7 minutes later.
Do we know how the Charlie firefighter got out? Do we know how he got out?
Whatever's in the report, maybe not. Interesting how he got off the second floor, right? Because he probably didn't go down the stairs. So 17 minutes later, 17 minutes after they arrived on scene, dispatch requested confirmation that the only missing firefighter at the incident was 9 Delta. Battalion 1 confirmed to dispatch that and then relayed the message to Engine 22 and Engine 4. Engine 22 officer confirmed they're looking for Engine 9 Delta, firefighter Fiala, but they were still knocking down the fire that hadn't made entry yet. Battalion 1 then requested the dispatch to send 2 medic units to the scene. The dispatch confirmed that 1 EMS unit was on scene, thinking another was being dispatched. Had asked Battalion 1 if they wanted a third alarm. Battalion 1 declined a third alarm, but requested 2 racks of SCBA cylinders and a fire investigator to be sent to the scene. He also advised dispatch that an electric company representative was already on scene. 19 minutes after arrival on scene, Battalion 1 requested a CAN report from Engine 4. Engine 4 officer responded that they were on side Bravo, stretching a hose line to get to the 2nd Division to make entry. Ladder 29 officer then advised that they have a ladder on the Alpha side, 2 ladders on the Bravo side, and they were unable to ladder sides Charlie or Delta due to fire in the windows. I added in the windows. I'm assuming that's why. 1 minute later, Engine 29 officer reported they switched out with Engine 2 personnel. They stretched 1 3/4 bumper line from Engine 2. They reported that they are on the Charlie Delta corner with heavy fire involvement and a partial roof collapse. Ladder 2 officer then reported they cleared the first 3 rooms of the 1st Division and requested to exit the building to swap out air cylinders. Battalion 1 acknowledged. Engine 2 officer then reported that they were exiting to swap out air cylinders.
I'm actually when I read this and I hear this, I'm shocked. They're still pulling 1 3/4 lines. They've got a single 2.5 pulled, and they must have 4, maybe 5 1 3/4 pulled, and they're still pulling them. And they're pulling bumper lines,
We're creatures
trash can
of habit.
lines. And why are they doing that?
Creatures of habit.
They can't control the fire. They keep pulling small lines. I don't know why.
Where's the mini monitor on a 65 with a blitz at the back corner? You need to overwhelm the enemy here.
And this thing's a tinderbox. It will burn.
It is.
And
It's
it
going
does.
to go. Yep.
And it does. And there's nothing holding it up, as we know.
22 minutes after on scene, Engine 22 officer requested Engine 22 engineer to increase water pressure on their hose lines. Battalion 1 then requested they provide a CAN report. Engine 22 officer advised they have 3 hose lines conducting fire attack from the exterior on the Bravo Charlie sides. They reported they no longer heard screams for help and did not have control of the fire yet. Battalion 1 acknowledged. 2 minutes after that, Battalion 1 assigned Ladder 2 to stage on the Alpha side and requested a CAN report from Engine 4, who reported they were still trying to get up into the 2nd Division. 26 minutes after on scene, Engine 29 officer then reported that they were on the Charlie Delta entrance looking in but could not see Engine 9 Delta firefighter Fiala, and they needed water. Battalion 1 asked if they were interior or looking in from the exterior, to which 29 officer responded that they are exterior fighting the fire. Battalion 1 requested that they continue into the building to search the entire room. 2 minutes later, Battalion 1 requested Engine 2 stage on side Alpha and that Engine 1 back up Engine 29 on that 2nd floor. He requested that they back them up with their hose line or take another with them. Engine 29 officer responded with a correction that they were on the 1st Division, first floor of Charlie Delta Corner, making their way into the 2nd Division. So they must have been down the hallway, I guess.
Yeah, there's no access to the 2nd floor from that corner.
No.
You'd have to go all the way through the fire apartment to get to the hallway. So there's they don't have a good situational awareness.
30 minutes after on scene, Engine 22 of our advised Battalion 1 that they had water on the fire on the 2nd Division of the side Bravo Charlie, but they were unable to control the fire from their position. Battalion 1 then attempted to raise Engine 9 Delta firefighter Fiala again on the radio again. Ladder 29 officer reported that they cleared from the 2nd Division on the Delta corner, while Battalion 1 requested a CAN report from Engine 4. 3 minutes later, Engine 29 officer reported the roof was falling in with conditions changing and heavy smoke. Engine 4 officer advised Battalion 1 they were still on the 1st Division, completed the search of 3 rooms on the Bravo side and 1 on the Delta side. And Delta side was the fire side. They reported they were making their way into the 2nd Division up the stairs. They still had fire on the 1st Division side Charlie, so the opposite side of the hallway. Or at the back, I mean. The dispatch advised Battalion 1 that Engine 29 had a 2nd Mayday. Battalion 1 requested a CAN report from Engine 29. The officer requested cancel the Mayday, stating it was emergency traffic about the roof collapsing and the 2nd Division fire penetration. Engine 29 officer confirmed they were not in an emergency situation.
I'm surprised they could make it up those stairs. Those stairs must have been in rough shape.
They must have been.
They're right over the fire practically.
34 minutes after being on scene, Engine 4 officer transmitted a priority traffic that they found the downed firefighter on the 1st Division, or the 1st floor, the Bravo Charlie corner, and requested assistance. The Engine 4 officer noted that Engine 9D, so that's firefighter Jeff Fiala, his pass was active, his foot was stuck on something, and he did not have a low air alarm. Battalion 1 acknowledged that while Engine 29 reported they were going to swap out air cylinders and recycle. Ladder 29 officer reported they were conducting fire attack from the Charlie Delta corner and had partial roof collapse on the 2nd Division, or that's the 2nd floor. Battalion 1 requested that Ladder 29 officer assistance with the rescue. Ladder 29 officer declined as they were conducting fire attack from the side Delta exposure. Just a moment later, Engine 2 officer reported that they were on the Charlie Delta corner, making entry to assist with the rescue. Battalion 1 requested confirmation of the unit that found the downed firefighter. Dispatch then responded that they believed it was Engine 4 and that Engine 9D, or firefighter Fiala, was the one that they made contact with. 37 minutes after being on scene, Ladder 29 officer transmitted priority traffic that if all personnel are accounted for, all units should go to defensive strategy, as the 2nd Division, or the 2nd floor, was now fully involved. Battalion 1 confirmed and requested a CAN report from Engine 4 along with their location. Engine 4 officer responded that they were coming out with a victim through side alpha and needed medical assistance immediately. Battalion 1 then ordered all units not assisting with the victim to completely exit and evacuate the structure. Dispatch then sounded emergency tones and advised all units on scene that as per Battalion 1, they were to change strategies from offensive to defensive. Dispatch requested that all units exit the building and conduct PAR, or Personal Accountability Report. Just a moment after that, Battalion 1 advised dispatch that the victim had been extricated and that they were getting him to EMS. Engine 9D, or firefighter Jeff Fiala, was transported to the local hospital where he was pronounced deceased.
So, fire origin and cause. So the fire department, in collaboration with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, their national response team, completed their on-scene origin and cause fire investigation. The fire was classified as accidental due to unattended cooking, and the fire had originated in the kitchen of apartment 9, which, as we know, was in the Charlie Delta corner rear of the structure on the first floor. So that's where the fire had occurred.
Yeah, tragic fire that got big fast and overwhelmed them, right?
So when Engine 9 got caught on the stairs, or at the top of the stairs, when they created a flow path downstairs by opening the apartment door, Ladder 2 opened the apartment door, and the fire came out and went up the stairs. There were 4 guys, right? There was the captain, or the acting officer, and then there were the other 3 firefighters with him when that happened. So the captain and the firefighter B, which is the engine operator normally, they got out through the Alpha side second floor apartment. The Charlie designated position got out some way we don't know, but the Delta designated position, which is firefighter Fiala, was found on the first floor in the Bravo Charlie corner. So it would appear that when the fire roared up the stairs, he might have been the tail end Charlie on the group going up. And instead of going up to find shelter, he went down and got into the nearest door that he could get into, which would be that apartment in the corner. It was directly off the hallway, and couldn't get out. There's no door out. There actually is a door out, but it's blocked by the bed.
Yeah.
So that's where they talked about doors in the building, but they were fixed closed. So he might have thought there was a way out there, but he couldn't.
According to the drawing, he was found in the vicinity of the bed,
right,
which would have been the doorway to that back apartment. There was 2 windows across, but he had no idea they were there. But it is interesting that the other 2 firefighters went upstairs and exited the second floor.
We think all 3 went up, right? We think. We don't know. They don't talk about the Charlie firefighter, where he went. We don't know if he went down and out the front, down and out a side window, up and out another window on the second floor. We don't know. They don't tell us. So we don't know.
Yeah.
But so did firefighter Fiala get injured? Did he have an air pack failure as a result of, being caught in the flow path? Was he injured? Because he doesn't appear to have searched for a window when he got in. He's wearing a 45-minute pack. You would think he'd have enough time to do a quick perimeter of this very small room. Really, it's not very large. Find the window and get out the window, but he didn't.
The captain said his mask was melting.
His mask, yes.
Yeah, so if they were together, they would have been experiencing similar heat conditions.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah.
So we don't know any of those, causations for. He got into a room. He was behind a door. He was sheltered. Would have been hot. Would have been smoky. But one would ask the question: how come he couldn't get out? And we don't have the answer to that. Why couldn't he get out? He's a young guy, but only has a year and a half experience. See, that's
not a lot of experience. Yep.
And by himself.
Terrifying, and by himself, which you're normally never by yourself. That would freak you out on its own.
Yeah, and I doubt that he had the irons with him. Somebody else probably did.
Yeah, the other picture showed the irons. I thought it was in the second floor.
Yeah.
Nope.
I think that's where the Charlie
Nope.
firefighter got out. He got out the
Sure.
second floor, I suspect. Yeah, second division.
Second division. So the recommendations, which is why we're here, right? Recommendation number 1, ensure interior search crews' means of egress are protected by a staffed hose line. So if you're going to have people interior searching, they need to be protected by a staffed hose line of sufficient size, I would say, as well. In this incident, the discussion goes on to say that Engine 9 made entry and conducted interior searches on the second division, second floor. When they entered, they had clear conditions, lights on within the buildings, no indication of fire. They did not take a hose line with them to control rapid fire growth or provide protection. Their means of egress was cut off by rapid developing fire from the first floor. It came through those 2 apartments beyond the kitchen there. When conducting a search for fire attack above a fire, if you're going above the fire, second floor, it's important for firefighters to recognize a potential danger of being trapped by the fire. This danger is influenced by the construction of the building, which we knew was poor. They didn't know that, but we did. They've probably seen that type of construction before if they had experience. In buildings such as the one in this incident, vertical fire spread is more rapid. Flames may spread vertically and trap firefighters operating above the fire by traveling up the interior stairs within concealed spaces, through windows, or up the combustible exterior siding, from NIOSH 2012. Fire departments should ensure that charged hose line is either advanced with the interior search crew or is operated by another firefighter to provide protection while entering immediately dangerous to life and health environment. The only exception for entering a structure without an operational hose line is when an occupant can be seen or heard within a few feet of the entry to the structure or fire area. Additionally, deployed backup lines should be operational and dedicated to protect interior crews for their means of egress. And I mean, this is a controversial subject that a lot of people would debate on and on, is, going in without a hose line. And yes, under the right conditions, that can be done. And with experience, going in without a hose line above a fire is even more risky, especially in a building that's built like a timber box. So, these are all things that come into it. You get this vent enter search thing is fine. You're going in, you break the window. What are the conditions? Is it safe? Yes. Okay, I'll go in, I'll close the door, and I'll search somebody and get them out. But, we've had a couple instances where they do a vent enter search and then they go down the hallway and then they get trapped, right?
Yeah. I don't think that searching without a hose line is the same as searching without taking due regard to protect yourself. I think
Right.
you may search without a hose line, but you take steps to protect yourself.
Yep.
Like if you're going to go and search a room, you close the door behind you, you search the room, you make sure that there's a ladder on the exterior so you have a second way out. In this case, they took 4 firefighters, engine company firefighters, by the way, in to search the second floor. Why didn't they pull a hose in with them and leave one guy at the bottom of the stairs? 2 would have been better, with the hose line to make sure that their means of egress was not compromised.
And same
to
with
me, that would have
laddering.
made
If you're
sense.
going to the second floor, you need to ladder it. And you didn't control the flow path. You got to control the flow path.
Correct. So the first error was made by going in without hose line protection or some other means of securing your exit. The second mistake was made when ladder 2 went in and created a flow path, and that flow path maintained because they failed to control the door. The fire flashed over the room and they bailed and left the door open.
Yeah.
And so that was a fatal event, and they should have controlled the door. So there was a couple things there that could have happened.
IFSTA says that in 2013, a backup hose line performs 3 critical functions: protecting the primary interior attack team from extreme fire behavior, protecting the means of egress for interior teams, and providing additional fire suppression capacity in the event of a fire volume increases, which all makes sense.
So recommendation 2, use the appropriate hose line based upon current conditions. And I've already commented a bit on this, but at this incident, the fire department had several 1 3/4 inch hose lines, but only 1 2.5 hose line deployed around the structure for fire suppression. As the fire grew in intensity, units notified the incident commander that they had water on the fire, but it was not enough to gain control of the fire. That's your first indication you're not putting enough water on it. Use of deck cannons from on-scene apparatus was not effective due to the limited access and obstructions to the fire building because it was behind another building and really was barely visible from the street. So deck guns off of apparatus from the street would have required the apparatus being in just the right spot to get the water into just the right place. And, once your apparatus is spotted, that can go away on you. But you've got portable monitors and you've got large streams. So, even 2.5-inch lines with smooth bores, large smooth bore tips can put a lot of water on the fire, but they didn't do that in this case. So this delay in fire suppression hampered the ability of RIT and others involved in the rescue operations to enter the structure. There were really no ways into the structure except the main door, right? Firefighters need to provide the appropriate amount of water in the initial attack to put out the fire and to stop potential fire growth. Fire departments generally use 1 3/4 inch hose line as the initial pre-connect for residential structure fires. These lines are operated to provide 160 gallons per minute. 160 gallons per minute is more than we've seen in some of our previous reports. Paul, we've, guys going in with a 60, 90, 120 nozzles, right? And this is 160 gallons a minute. So from that point of view, it's more than we've seen in some past reports. But
yeah, it's a mid-range nozzle, it looks like. Right.
But I'll give you, for example, I think that's not enough water, even for an 1 3/4 line. In my last 2 departments, for instance, our minimum flow was 160 gallons a minute, 600 liters per minute. And simply by taking the tip off, we could go to 210 gallons a minute just by taking the tip off, and which is 800 liters a minute at 50 psi nozzle pressure. So easy to handle, not a lot of back pressure, and large flows comparatively. They don't seem to have had that kind of setup in this case. Anyway, these hose lines, 160 gallons a minute on an 1 3/4 line, can be effective for suppression when the fire is confined to a single room and is in either the incipient or a growth stage. However, modern furniture such as televisions and mattresses are increasingly being manufactured with synthetic materials with high levels, proportions in other words, of hydrocarbons, like Paul likes to call gasoline in furniture.
Solidified gasoline. Yep.
Yeah. They're not solidified when they're on fire, Paul.
Not anymore. They change their physical properties.
Right. These furnishings burn at greater speeds and intensity, facilitating rapid fire growth and extension. During this incident, firefighters should have selected and deployed appropriate hose lines based upon fire conditions. And this is 100-year-old building, essentially constructed of highly flammable natural wood materials. So, yeah, it may not be modern furniture, but it is highly flammable. Anyway, while monitoring fire suppression activities, the incident commander, incident safety officer, we don't know if there was one on this call.
No, there's not mention of one.
That's right. Or operations, but they I think the battalion chief did have an aide though, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a fit.
Yeah. While monitoring suppression activities, these personnel should evaluate whether the hose size being used is appropriate from the current fire conditions and for other factors. So 1 3/4 hose, 200-foot pre-connects. We did calculations on that as to how long a pre-connect could be before you had substantial flow loss, pressure, high pressure, in other words. And 200 feet was doable. 300 feet was just doable. But I think beyond that, you were out of luck. Pretty much. I mean, you start losing flow, right? Anyway, you need to be looking at fire load and material involved. So contents and the structure itself, the location of the fire, long distance, really, particularly speaking, from the location of the engines, the size of the building in the fire area. Remember, length times width times height, volume times your 10 gallons a minute or whatever that formula, rule of thumb formula is, and the fire spread. In other words, where it's going to go. And, you're creating flow paths, as we know from previous studies through NIST and so forth, that if you're trying to fight a fire into a flow path, it basically can't flow enough water to make it happen. And so you got to get rid of the flow path and or put the water in on the windward side. And they were putting the water in on the windward side. But unfortunately, that was contributing to create the flow path that was killing their firefighter. Anyway, selecting the correct size of hose is critical. Inability to provide sufficient volumes of water for the size of the fire may delay extinguishment or prevent it even, and will expose firefighters to danger from rapid fire development, all of which appear to have occurred in this particular incident.
Recommendation number 3, train on recognition of flow paths and interior fire attack techniques utilizing door control. And Denny's talked on this before. That door control is so crucial in preventing that spread and controlling that fire. At this incident, ladder number 2 firefighters were completing searches in apartments 1 and apartment 3, which were on the first floor. As a firefighter kicked open that door of apartment number 2, heavy fire immediately exited apartment number 2, and that's where that created that flow path into the hallway, forcing ladder 2 to evacuate outside of Alpha. A flow path is basically defined as the movement of heat and smoke from higher pressure within the fire area towards the lower pressure areas accessible via doors, window openings, and roof structures. Maintaining door control is a critical component of coordinated ventilation and fire attack. Opening a door changes the ventilation profile of the structure and may have had an adverse effect on fire behavior. Controlling the door limits the fresh air available to the fire and reduces the flow path. Now, once water is applied to a fire, it is no longer ventilation limited. This allows for more rapid and safer ventilation.
And the problem is that doorway that may have been covered over from the kitchen into apartment 2 obviously failed, allowing the fire to flow towards the area of low pressure, which is the hallway where the front door was open, which was also downwind.
Right. So that's unexpected fire spread. There's a failure in the envelope where the fire is, right?
Yep.
So the fire's in the kitchen of this one-room apartment, basically, and it's contained in there. So it's oxygen limited, right? It would like to burn more, but it can't. There's only so much oxygen. Now, there's a lot of windows in that apartment, and there's a door. So the firefighters, the first line goes back to the Charlie Delta corner, and they start fighting the fire from the exterior. They're forcing water in through a burned out window or hole in the wall or whatever it is. So not only is there wind there, they're creating more pressure by creating expansion inside and pushing in from the outside. And if they're using a fog line, they're pushing air into that apartment also. And they likely are using a fog line. So then what happens is there's a door, a flimsy door that connects that to another apartment. That burns through. So suddenly the fire's got more oxygen. Suddenly it starts to burn more. And then ladder 2 comes along, kicks the door open, which provides a ventilation path. So now you're got the wind pushing on the Charlie Delta corner. You got the fire streams pushing on the Charlie Delta corner. And suddenly somebody opens a door into a hallway and the Alpha side door is open. So now it's got a place to go, and it goes. And you got stairs upstairs and it goes there too.
In the meantime, Engine 9 is going up the stairs, right, to get to the second division, while Engine 2 is opening doors, or Ladder 2 is opening doors without a hose line in the hallway to protect the stairway.
Yeah. But how many instances is it now, Paul, that we've talked about actions taken by firefighters without appreciating, I would say. They may understand it, but I don't know if they necessarily appreciate the consequences from a flow path point of view of what they're doing.
Yeah. Really, this chief IC needed another officer in the first division. He had multiple companies working in that area. His span of control was high. They had Engine 9, Engine 2, Engine 4, Engine 22, Ladder 1, Ladder whatever. And really, they haven't subdivided. They haven't sectored off. And so he didn't have that. Now, there's time. This happened fairly quickly. The firefighter Fiala turned his SCBA on, and 7 minutes later, his man down was being activated. But I assume he turned it on when he went in the hallway to go up the stairs. So, these are all things that weren't, it was good. The blue card, the command, all that was good. They had a lot of people, maybe not quite enough, but almost enough on the first assignment. The hose lines were too small. That building, as Brunacini said, was built to burn, and they needed more water because of the type of building it was, and then not being aware of the flow path. I think an officer in the hallway supervising, not in charge of crew, like in a crew, but a senior officer in a supervisory position would have been good, or a safety officer, one of the two, that maybe would have helped in this case.
But somebody with their antenna up, paying attention to the close-in conditions, and because really this was two buildings on fire. You had one building in the Charlie Delta corner that was all separated from everything else and burning away until suddenly they opened it up to the other building, and then all bets were off at that point.
Exactly.
But nobody appreciated that.
No. Recommendation number 4, and we, guys, we're Monday morning quarterbacking, yes, but we want everybody to learn. This is a recent incident. This happened not a year ago. We need to learn from these incidents, and so that's why we're doing the podcast in a different format that you could just listen to it. So, recommendation number 4: employ proactive RIT operations for access and egress. The discussion here is the fire department utilized rotating units for RIT until the arrival of a heavy rescue company. During the incident, Engine 4 was assigned to stage on the Alpha side with their RIT equipment. After the Mayday was called, rescue efforts were ordered, with multiple units being assigned to assist with extricating firefighter Fiala, Engine 9 Delta. These units were unable to make entry into the structure through the existing access and egress points due to the fire conditions and a delay in effective fire suppression. Effective RIT operations are dependent on proactive efforts. Upon arrival, the RIT officer, accompanied by one member of the RIT team, gets a report from the incident commander and then should perform an incident scene survey with the remaining RIT members while the remaining RIT members assemble the RIT equipment. Doing a 360 on your own as a RIT officer, the RIT officer members should look for ways in and out of the structure, including windows, fire escape, construction features, etc. The RIT officer should note the feasibility for placement of ground ladders for rescue or escape purposes. The RIT officer has a responsibility to set up and secure a suitable secondary egress for the interior crews. This is by Rowlett in 2018. Toledo Fire and Rescue Department. After these tasks are completed, the RIT equipment is put in place and the RIT officer informs the incident commander that a 360 is complete and the RIT is ready to intervene, if necessary. The entire RIT should stay in an area immediately accessible to the building for rapid deployment and maintain radio contact with the commander. RIT protection is not a passive assignment. It's a process of ongoing further information gathering and diligent scene monitoring until the unit is released by command from NIOSH. So it's really important that, hey, if we're sending people to the second floor, we need to ladder the second floor. We need a way to get at them if we can't get in the primary way, which is we got to do that. And sometimes RIT can be so boring. Okay, you guys are RIT. Oh, great. We're not going to do anything. These guys are all working hard and we're going to sit here, But no, you need to be interactive and act proactive.
The last recommendation report, recommendation number 5, is to ensure that the delegated zoning or building code enforcement authority shares the change of occupancy information with the fire department. So, in 1955, official building records show that the building's occupancy classification was listed as hotel and apartments. And that is the first recorded documentation indicating that the building was no longer a single-family residence. In 1974, a certificate of occupancy was granted for the building to contain 10 individual apartments. These occupancy changes were never shared with the Fire Prevention Bureau, and as a result, it was never included in their inspection program or identified as a multifamily occupancy. During the incident, the fire department believed they were responding to a single-family dwelling. Now, I just want to touch on this, and actually, Danny, you touched on this earlier. At this building was moved. The original single-family dwelling, which as a single-family dwelling would have been a beautiful home back in the day, was moved, physically picked up and moved to the back of this lot, basically the backyard of this location. And a newer home, a multifamily, was built in front, and that would have had to been inspected. There's no way you could have not seen the older dwelling back there. Which would have been a great opportunity to knock on some doors and do some checking at the time. And again, nobody likes to point fingers, and Paul, you talked a bit about armchair quarterbacking. It is always easier to look at this stuff, but there's some red flags here. Definitely red flags. Communication is always one of the first things to go. And
same red flag that happened in Baltimore that killed 3 firefighters in 2021 or whatever it was, right? We often get these same red flags, and we just need to keep bringing them up and hope that we slowly get better.
What was Danny's comment? Danny's comment, I got to use that. Know your hood.
Yep.
Yeah. I got to point the finger back at fire department management, because having been a fire department manager, let's face it, the buck stops here, right? And if you've got a building department who's looking after permitting and change of uses and so forth, and they're not communicating with you when there's new occupancies or changes in occupancies, that's up to you to establish that networking to make that happen, whether it's formally or informally. Sometimes you got to play nice to get the results that you want to get, right? So You can't stand back there with your hands on the hips and go, oh, huffing and puffing that I didn't get this information. It's not my fault. You gotta make that move. But I will also tell you that internally you can have issues too. Like maybe your fire investigators or fire inspectors know about something, but the guys on the trucks don't.
Yeah.
And vice versa. The guys on the trucks are out on a medical call. They see something. Okay, that shouldn't be like that. But that's as far as it goes. So, your internal communications has to really work also. And all of that only matters if it gets back to dispatch and it gets put on the run card so that when the call goes out, it goes out with it, the information, the pre-plan, well, some level of pre-planning anyway, gets out with the call. So when the crews arrive, they know something about it. And the fact that the call came in from apartment 9 and dispatch knew that, did that information even go out over the air? Well, something along those lines must have, because they initiated a second alarm automatically. In other words, an upgraded alarm to match a multi-unit residency. So they must have known on the way in, but they may not have known much about it.
Yep. It's
a
tough deal, but if you're the fire chief, you're the manager, it's on your watch. You need to make sure that the people feel empowered and want to be proactive to do the best that they can for the citizens. That's so important. And it can be a very hard
it's a hard lesson to learn.
Hard attitude to instill in the agency. We're not just here for fun. We need to be prepared for these bad days, and it's really difficult to do. I had one of my battalion chiefs, who's now a chief, actually, Clearwater Regional, Chris Hemerick, and he came back from some conference and he said, for every alarm from now on, we're pulling line. We're catching a hydrant, we're pulling line. And I said, well,
and ladders.
You're gonna get pushback on that. So I don't care. We need to be ready. I said, well, yeah, I do agree with you 100%.
And ladders, Paul.
And ladders, yep. And ladders,
so, two things. You got to have the staff to throw ladders. You got to have the ladders to throw ladders.
Yep. So this is from the Honolulu Civil Beat, which I think it's sort of like a municipal periodical of some sort. And there's an article that came out because this was very controversial in Honolulu, in part due to the fact that searching without a hose line was new in Honolulu, and it was introduced by a new administration in the last year or two. And so this has been controversial now, that is it responsible for the death of this firefighter or not? And so there's some opinions on that. Anyway, I've got a little excerpt that I thought was applicable. Anybody, you can look it up if you want to read more on it. But anyway, the Hawaii Firefighters Association has requested a meeting with Honolulu fire leadership to discuss the issue that has called on all island fire chiefs to run new training proposals by the union, because the union says they weren't really aware of this change. Union President Bobby Lee, who served as a Honolulu firefighter for 36 years, told Civil Beat that he was shocked to learn upon Fiala's death that HFD was doing unprotected searches. He believes the fire department should revert to its past practices. Number one priority is firefighter safety, he said. We have to be able to protect ourselves. We cannot help anybody if we cannot protect ourselves. Hawaii workplace safety investigators determined that after Fiala's death, the Honolulu Fire Department had failed to ensure its supervisors could recognize hazards, maintain safety and health protections, and reinforce employee training. The agency actually fined the Honolulu Fire Department, $16,550 for what they labeled as a serious violation. So far, Honolulu Fire has not made any policy changes. The department leaders told Civil Beat, which is where this article is from, that it's an ongoing internal review of the Yonge Street fire. However, which will result in recommendations. It's a tragic accident that we can learn from, Assistant Chief Joe Costita said. In the meantime, unprotected searches remain. There's more to this article. A desire to save more lives. For decades, Honolulu Fire took a more risk-averse approach for searches. Several department veterans told Civil Beat. We didn't use that technique, retired Battalion Chief Keith Yasui said of the unprotected searches. We never used to do that. Back in his day, Yasui said, firefighters had to be able to see someone who could be rescued. For instance, a person yelling out the window of a burning home. Only then would firefighters make the call to go in, he said. And even then, we'd want a hose line to help combat the fire and provide a safe pathway back out of the building. That changed after Fire Chief Sheldon Kalani Howe took over. Howe declined to be interviewed for the story, but he made two of his subordinates available, Koshida and the Assistant Chief and Battalion Chief Justin Brownfield. Previously, searching was not a priority until the fire had been put out, Brownfield said. In the past, Costita and Brownfield said HFD lacked the written standard operating guidelines, so searches were conducted at the discretion of captains who would either order their crews to search or not, depending on their risk assessments. Costita said he himself had searched without a hose line in cases that he felt were tenable. When Howe took over as chief, there was a desire to align HFD with national practices to save more civilian lives, Brownfield said. I don't think that we're serving the public that we're here to serve by not doing the tactics and tasks that we're able to do. Unprotected search training was conducted the second half of 2022, according to Costita. The department put the strategy in a written standard operating guideline in July of 23. During a search, it says fire attack hose lines should be readily available if needed. If needed is left undefined. So the discussion goes on. I just saw a post on one of the social feeds yesterday, a big debate about searches and unprotected searches and all that kind of stuff. And it will continue to go on. The risk needs to be assessed. That's the big thing.
I think unprotected searches is a misnomer. I don't think they're truly unprotected. They may be unprotected from the point of view you don't have a hose line with you, but I do think you have to be cognizant of the risks. I do think you have to do a calculation in your head about what the risk is, where the risk might be coming from, and what you're going to do if the risk, like a fire, does develop. And how are you getting out? What's your other way out? And can you put a line that's protecting the your means of egress some way?
Right.
So unprotected does not, to my mind, meaning following an SOP that says, yeah, I can go search, above a fire without a hose line. Yeah, it's way more complicated than that. And I would expect a lot of experience before you make those decisions.
Like any other safety officer would look at it. Okay, what's the risk and what are the mitigations that are needed to mitigate that risk? If you're searching without a hose line on the main floor, fairly not risky because the hallway's right there, the doorway's right there, the windows are right there. But if you're going to go up a stairway, that might be different. Above a fire, then we may want to do something, have some more mitigations in place.
Yeah. If you go up a stairs and close the door at the top of the stairs, you're safer than an open stair, for instance.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. So what can you do to
and they've laddered the second floor windows, you got a second way out, you're safer than if none of that existed.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes it tough, though, with all the stuff, all the podcasts, all the line of duty deaths, other ones that they're aware of. I mean, if you see smoke or if there's an indication of working fire, just bring that charged hose line with you. Always have two ways to get in and out. I know, if we were going in through the alpha side of a residence, we always made sure that the Charlie side was softened, that they were ready as a second way to get out from an egress standpoint, and controlling that flow path, controlling that door, like you were saying, Denny. If you go in one way, you better have another way to get out in case the first way doesn't work. Whether you're putting somebody on a roof, a second floor, third floor, whatever, firefighter safety is there. I did not see anywhere in here where it said that a person was trapped or that there was anybody suspected in there. They were just going to a working fire. So that's a lot of...
No, they didn't have the information. Yeah. Which apartment buildings, you never know. You got to search.
No. And that was sad. So very sad.
But if you're going to change a policy that acknowledges procedures that are riskier than you're normally used to doing, I think you need to be making offsetting policies, like ensuring that there's a line in place, ensuring that you know how to control doors, all of those types of things. Other strategies, laddering. You need to have those policies that go with it. If A, then B, then C, then D. Something along those lines. It's not suddenly you've got a new set of clothes that nothing can get through. It's not like that.
And the big thing here, which NIOSH didn't talk about at all, was incident command span of control, which was exceeded according to ICS principles. So that could have been I would say that could be a contributing factor to this fatality, definitely, because they didn't have adequate supervision for the units.
I don't think there was a safety officer either.
No. So it's surprising actually. Now I actually didn't catch that, but now that they're listening to our podcast, maybe they'll catch that stuff.
Span of control, accountability, communication, like a lot of those ICS principles, were missed, unfortunately. But
Yeah. And this building was in a location where there was very limited visibility of the building. Your tight quarters on Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta side. There were exposures quite close by,
Mhm.
so there were concerns over exposure fires, particularly on the Delta side. In fact, one of the crews declined to do an assigned action because they were doing firefighting on the Delta exposure, which I took
Right.
as
Yeah.
cooling the building on the Delta side.
Mhm.
So there's all of those things. Like you should have had sector officers on all of those
Yeah.
sides.
Yeah.
Where, like the incident commander is sitting 500 feet away in his command car. Nah, he's not wandering around looking at these sides. Neither should he have to. Somebody
He's
has
focused
to.
on the guys inside, right? Yeah. So you need somebody
Yeah.
else to watch everything else.
Yeah.
I agree.
And we didn't really read about any of that happening. So
No. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for listening to another episode of the Emergency Traffic Podcast. We hope that you still find these informative and insightful. Give us a thumbs up or a like or a subscribe, and please tell a friend about the podcast so that we can all learn together. Now let's be safe out there.
take care, everybody. So much to learn. I hope you're learning something from this one.
yeah, be safe.